I'm holding my phone and I can hear my heart beating faster and faster. In front of me, there is a script I wrote. Hello, hello, what can I get you? Can I please have a pizza? I was 16 and I was rehearsing a phone call because I was so scared of it going wrong. Maybe you're not scripting pizza calls, but if you were avoiding something because it might go wrong, you are exactly where I was. Today, I have a business, a body I used to dream about, investments, and a girlfriend that I'm madly in love. But honestly, I didn't build it just like that. First, I had to lose myself. I was totally addicted to fast dopamine. I loved YouTube, video games, scrolling social media for hours. I avoided anything that had the risk of embarrassment, whether that was approaching someone on the street and asking them a question, going to the shop, ordering a pizza, asking a girl out. I was so obsessed with controlling every situation that I was in because I couldn't handle the thought of getting rejected or embarrassed. I even had goals and dreams. I wanted to have a business. I wanted to be rich. I wanted to have an attractive girlfriend. And I wanted to look like the heroes I watched in the movies. The problem was, even if somebody gave me the perfect plan, step by step, what to do in order to achieve all of those goals, that kid still wouldn't be able to do this. It wasn't a question of a little laziness, habits, or routines. I was just a person who was incapable of achieving all those goals. Someone who has to script a pizza phone call because he's too scared cannot start a business. Period. Plan or the information wasn't the missing piece. The person was. At the same time, I got a holiday job and I would work nights in a warehouse. When I came back from work, I was usually too stimulated to go to bed immediately, so I would just sit there, do something on the phone, listen to something, watch a YouTube video, or something like this. After working there for about 2 weeks, and the work was really tough, I was miserable, completely depressed. I was exhausted during the day because I worked nights. I hated the work part because I was working with alcoholics and people who I didn't want to be around. And I was just sitting there and it hit me. Is that what my life is going to be? Is this what I'm supposed to live like in the future? And that night I started thinking about changing my life, getting disciplined, and so on. I even started outlining a plan for my future. But the truth is, it lasted for like 3 days. The pain started the process, but it did not sustain it. Because if the answer was hate your life enough and you're going to get rich and achieve all your goals, then everybody would be rich and everybody would achieve their goals because almost everyone hates their life. So hating your life is not what enables you to get those things. It can be the catalyst, but you need to focus on something entirely different. Now, before that, I was always the obese kid. And about 2 years earlier, at 14 or 15, I lost weight. I finally got disciplined, and it was the first time I actually controlled something in my life and got results from my work. I always had that external locus of control. My world controls me. What happens outside is what impacts my life. But first time I got the internal locus of control, where I can control things, was actually when I lost that weight. I already had become a different person. I already changed my personality. So I had the proof that I could do it again. But honestly, I sat on it for more than a year and did nothing with it. I just lost weight and ignored all the other parts of my life that needed improvement. At 16, I was lean, I was working out, I was fit, but I was still scripting pizza phone calls. Because honestly, I looked at weight loss as a singular example, not something that could be transferred to other areas of my life. And that's where I was wrong. Because you see, I had the evidence that I can actually focus on something, improve that area of my life, and completely transform my identity. It was there the whole time. I just hadn't used it. You can't change your identity on motivation alone. The fuel for your transformation is proof. The proof that you can actually change yourself and your environment. I didn't believe I could change my life because I got so motivated watching Goggins montages and so on. I had evidence, and that evidence allowed me to believe that if I was able to change my body and go from fat kid to someone who's lean and athletic, I could do it in all the other areas of my life. Two key components here are pain and proof. Pain without the evidence, pain without the belief that you can actually change your life just hurts. It's torture. So in order to go through that identity transformation, you need both. The biggest problem for me at the time was obviously my finances. I had to work this job that I hated and I had no money absolutely for anything. So I wanted to fix that as fast as possible. And I approached it with the same mindset as I did weight loss. So for weight loss, I asked myself, what is the habit that I need to build in order to lose weight? And at the time, it was skipping breakfast and skipping dinner. That was my whole thing. But I was looking for one action that can bring me that result. Now, for money, it's not as easy as for fitness, but what I did was I focused on one habit. I focused on one action, and that one action was reading. I heard all those rich guys online talking about how reading can improve your situation, especially Tai Lopez, who was talking about knowledge is power, books are power. So I said, all right, if I want to get rich, if I want to actually make money, I need to start reading. And I said, I will read 3 times a day, almost like a workout split, but for my brain and for my financial situation. I didn't have a full system. I didn't change my routine that much. I just said, I am going to start reading consistently because I believe it's going to make me money. And I stuck to it because I knew that if I stick to it, eventually I will see some progress. Maybe I will not become a millionaire reading books, but there will be some sort of evidence that I can get from it. And what do you know? Eventually I started thinking differently. I started seeing different perspectives, and reading all those books led me to starting my first business and making some money outside of a normal job and being employed in a company. That one habit changed who I am. Just like losing weight changed my personality and identity, becoming someone who learns, becoming someone who expands their knowledge changed who I was. You see, at this time, when I was addicted to fast dopamine and I didn't have skills yet, I could not sustain 10 habits. I couldn't do cold showers, running, building a business, creating content, and so on. I could pick one thing that I knew that I focused on it would eventually lead to all the others. One habit is small enough so that you can actually do it right now as the person that you are. And if you stick to it long enough, eventually it gives you more evidence so that you can tackle the next thing. Each promise to yourself that you keep gives you the evidence to make the next one. Eventually, the promises start compounding. What you did before gives you the evidence to tackle the next thing, and the next thing gives you the evidence to tackle the next thing, and so on and so on. Eventually, you transform into someone completely different. And looking back at that 16-year-old version of me, I have almost nothing in common with that guy. Losing yourself isn't free, and I paid a cost. You hear a lot about cutting people out of your life, but I didn't do that. I prioritized my growth so much that eventually the people I hanged around with stopped relating to me and started alienating and pushing me away. So I lost the group of friends that I had. I loved video games. They were my passion, but I had to let them go. And even though I loved them, I understood that if I am going to become who I say I want to become, I need to cut them off. I lost my ignorance. As people say, ignorance is bliss. Not knowing how hard it was to actually grow was better because I was always able to hope that someday I'm going to change and it's going to be so easy and so fun. But finding out that it is difficult, it is a struggle and fight, is something that I can never change. I wish I could go back to that ignorance and innocence of thinking that everything is easy, but I can't. After starting the transformation, I spent years fighting with myself and forging this new identity, this new person that I am today. And those years where I was transforming from someone who didn't have the right habits, who didn't have the right set of belief systems, into someone that I am today are never coming back. So a lot of the time that I spent on transformation was honestly lost forever. What keeps nagging me is that motivation or inspiration didn't keep me going. I was terrified of failure. And that fear of failure is what kept me working, what kept me motivated, what kept me pursuing all those good habits. Now, can you let go of that fear of failure? Is it okay to retire it? Or if I let it go, will I come back to the same place? I still am figuring this out. How can you replicate the same thing that I done? I need you to find your evidence. I know that right now you might be in a terrible situation and you might not have something big like I had the weight loss. Lower the bar. Look at the things that you've done in your life so far. And I promise there is something you've done that other people failed at. Even if you aren't addicted to drugs, that's success. You should look at that, if you have no addictions, as evidence that you can actually control your life, because there are people who are alcoholics, there are people who are addicted to drugs, and if you aren't one of them, that's already success. Maybe, just maybe, you were always good in school, you always got good grades. So that can be your evidence in order to pursue the thing. Or maybe you just have a group of friends. You have people who like you, you have a personality that's attractive. That can be your evidence. So find the thing that you've changed, that you've impacted positively in your life, and use that as the base for launching into the next habit, into the next thing that you're going to implement. Then pick one action. Pick something small. Pick something that you know you can keep up. Even if it sounds ridiculous and anticlimactic, maybe it's reading 10 pages a day. Maybe it's going for a 15-minute walk. Maybe it's just doing 2 cardio sessions a week. Whatever you can maintain. Because the point isn't changing your life with this one habit. The point is teaching yourself that if you focus on something and you keep up the consistency, you start getting results. And that will give you the evidence to pursue the next thing. In all of this process, you need to keep the pain visible. When I felt like I didn't want to read, what I would do is I would visualize myself in that warehouse, surrounded by alcoholics, where I had to work for minimum wage. And I would visualize me right in there, miserable, sad, and the guy who owned the company, who's sitting at home with his wife watching TV. And I'm getting paid $5 per hour and he's making thousands, if not hundreds of thousands from my work. And that pain, that like, this guy can just sit and I have to sweat here, hating my life, ruining my days, and he's making money from it. That pain, that's like knife, that's what kept me going. That's what kept me motivated to say, no, okay, this is terrible. I don't want to live like that. So I'm going to, this reading habit has to stick. Because if it doesn't, it means that this will literally be my life forever. So keep your pain visible, visualize it, twist the knife in your chest, make it sting, because that's what's going to keep you from falling off in those darker moments. And allow yourself to lose yourself. Accept that you will drift away from your friends. Accept that you might lose the things that you loved, like video games for me. Accept that it will cost you time and you will never have the confidence that it's actually going to work, because that was the hardest part. Trying to do the thing when I didn't know it was going to work is what was the most painful element. Because if I had the guarantee that, okay, if you keep on reading, if you keep on developing, eventually it will work, it would be much easier. The hardest part was doing it in uncertainty, not knowing if it's going to work. Watching those free YouTube videos about self-growth, hoping that something will click someday, but you have no confidence. And that was the most difficult part. So accept the cost. Accept that lost friends, lost hobbies, completely changing who you are, and the uncertainty are the price for getting into the position that you want to find yourself in. And now, honestly, when I look at the second version of me, I feel like it's almost impossible to get from that place to where I am today. I just want to promise you that if someone who's afraid of making pizza phone calls and has to script them can get to where I am today, 10,000 hours coaching, running a business, investing, having a great physique and body. You can do it too. I swear you're probably in a much better situation than I was mentally. If you're okay with calling for a pizza, you can do what I've done, probably faster with more results. If that sounds interesting and you're also on your way to becoming someone you admire, or you're on your way to your goals, that's exactly what I'm documenting on this channel. I'm giving you the lessons and the strategies I wish I had at 16 so that I could achieve what I've achieved faster, maybe even achieve more with less pain and without the scars that I had to take in order to do this. If that sounds interesting, subscribe and see you in the next one.